Thank you, Carlos. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I'm so honored to be here and to be part of this summit. We have been doing a lot of work on DRR for a long, long time at SMRC, a DPO, which is on the east coast of India. We started working on DRR as early as 1999 when a huge cyclone hit the coast. I live on a coastal region, and that is what links DRR to climate change. And we have seen that from 1999, as we did DRR from then from the local to the national to Sendai, it has been a long, long journey. But we also realized that as we went on, that where the coast was concerned, there was a complete erosion of the coastal lands that were there. People were being displaced. There was a huge amount of environmental loss of biodiversity. So it was something then we realized that it was climate change which was creating the large number of disasters that were taking place. We had cyclones. This year itself, we've already had 3 cyclones. And many of them quite large because my office had about 100 trees. There are only 2 trees left from one of the cyclones. So these cyclones were coming, and when we realized that it is linked to climate change, and then that the sea was warming up, that the sea was getting acidic, that the sea was ingressing into the land. And in 2016, as part of a large 17 university consortium across the globe, we covered 17 countries, about 49 universities and government organizations, as well as civil society. And we did some research across across deltas, across the mountain regions and arid zones. So we realized that climate change, while we're looking at disabilities in terms of intersectionalities and in terms of diversities, we also need to look at climate change from a perspective of intersectionality and diversity. That there are oceans, that there are which are rising, that there are areas where arid zones where the soil are increasing, and there are mountains where people have to come down because there is no more snow. Now, this was affecting all persons with disability who lived in those regions. And that is a large number, because if we are 50% of the global population, we are also 15% of the climate change, at least, who are being affected, and being affected much more than anyone else. That is a personal experience. That is something that I have seen in those regions. In the coastal areas that I worked in for a number of years, we saw that villages had completely disappeared. And the biggest problem was that of livelihood, because the seas had become acidic. So the fishing community lost all their food. The sea had ingressed into the agriculture. And so there was no more food to be for anyone. And the disabled had a major problem, because what happened in terms of climate change, people moved. There was huge amount of migration. We did a mapping of that region, and hotspots were seen, marked by the scientists and by the geographers. And we found that the movement was large from those hotspots, and a huge number of persons with disabilities who could not move were left behind in what was called relocation colonies, where the houses that were there were not accessible. They had very little medical care to be, or schooling left for them. And for those men who did migrate and could migrate, they left behind women-headed households. So, they had a double whammy. That is, they not only had men not there, they had very little remittances coming back. And so livelihoods were completely in a messed up place. So when you look at these, we have to see how this intersects with gender, how this intersects with our policies, how this intersects with the action that we take. That is why it is not only mitigation that COP talked so much about, that every country must keep their climate change to 1.5 degrees, but it was also the fact that we did not talk much about adaptation. And adaptation is so very important in climate change, because unless you don't have food, unless you don't have housing, these are issues that will come back to where disabled people are concerned, will hurt them much more. So in any kind of policy making that we do, adaptation is very, very important. We looked at about 21 adaptations when I did the deltas in where I live. Most of these adaptations that were acknowledged by the government were not possible for persons with disabilities to work on. So when we work on adaptation, we also need to work on accessibility within adaptation. We need to work on issues that persons with disability find it very important in terms of livelihood. And that is something that we will have to look at. The UNFCCC did not include disability in the beginning. It did not also include gender. And where women with disabilities are concerned in any climate change, it is bound to, and it does affect them immensely. Because if water shortages are there, and women have to fetch water, or you have to pay nowadays for water, because if tube wells are sunk in these areas and there is no water left because the salt has entered the area where water is concerned, then how do women with disabilities pay for that water? Because water then becomes a commodity that is sold. The food that is there, that also is a capacity, is another commodity which becomes very expensive to buy. So we have to look at not only what we call as adaptation policies, but we also have to look at capacity building, our own capacity building, because our capacity is so low. We still don't know what is happening properly. We still don't know. We still have to learn, as we just saw, about what climate change is doing to us. And we know that in the next few years is going to be dramatic changes. And one of the dramatic changes that will happen is that of increasing fires. If increasing fires are going to be there, then persons with disabilities need to be linked with the solution that are there, that people are looking for in climate change in relation to fires, not only to rising sea, where in the Pacific, for example, some of the islands are completely lost. Now, these are things that we need, our policies need to be changed. And what was just said, we need knowledge building. Immense amount of knowledge building. I know there is a lot of focus on that in recent years, but I think we still need tremendous much more amount of knowledge building as how climate change affects persons with disabilities. What are the solutions? Here we're not talking about mangroves, and we're not talking about the heat that is increasing. We're talking of so many other things. We're also talking about budget allocations. We're talking about better planning to be done. How are we included not only in rural areas, but also in urban resilient policies that are there? We are talking about a new kind of function that we will need. Can we think about disability focal points in every country? We just about the NDCs, and the NDCs, how important they are, but what a failure they have been. But can we still suggest that in every country, at every district, that there is a focal point? Because all of us who have experience of DRR also know that it is possible. And if it was possible in DRR, I think it is also possible in climate change. There has to be a clear disability mainstreaming policy and planning. The research is not only at the concept of vulnerability, but on the vision that we have for the future, and that future must include the voices of persons with disability, what they think and what they want to do. Thank you so much, Carlos.